this is Hoa. Welcome to part 4 of Piquant, the romance story of Garrison and Peyton. I hope that you have enjoyed this series. You can find the first 3 parts in the videos below. And again, if you have not subscribed, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that we can all support each other. Enjoy! Home turned out to be on a private jet where a large bed occupied the back. I was so exhausted when we reached the jet that Garrison lifted me into his arms to carry me in. I didn't even fight. He brought me straight to the bedroom and set me down. He loved to speak to the pilot, and I felt the energy draining from me. I snuggled into the warm blankets and drifted off to sleep. "Sweetheart, we're here," Garrison said as he kissed my temple. I stirred and groaned. How long was I out? I forced my eyes open and realized we had landed. I sat up and he helped me stand. I felt the wave of dizziness hit me and I swayed. He caught me and held me as he tilted my chin to look up at him. "You all right?" he asked with deep concern. Nodding, I replied, "Yes, I'm just tired. I think the jet ride got to me." "Here, let me help you." Before I could object, he picked me up and carried me out to the car waiting for us. The driver opened the door and he set me in. I felt the nausea hit me hard, and I put my head down between my legs, trying to control the urge to throw up. I heard Garrison speaking with the driver before getting in. Immediately, I felt his hands on my shoulder, helping me to sit up. "Lean on me," he said. "I feel like I'll vomit." "Then vomit on me." I laughed. "If this is your tactic to get laid, you're so not getting any." Garrison laughed. "You wound me, darling. I merely wanted to make you comfortable. The ride there is another hour." I groaned. "Oh, where are we?" "You'll see. Close your eyes and get some rest. I'll wake you when we arrive." The soft chirping of a bird woke me. I rubbed my eyes and found a blanket beside me. It was really soft. I pried my eyes open and realized I was sleeping inside a very large room. The bed was a 4-poster bed with thick sheepskin blanket, and the fire was still burning. The room was the size of my house. I sat up and realized I was alone, but when I shifted to look beside me, I saw the mold of a body shape. Garrison had slept with me. I looked down and saw that I was wearing an ivory satin nightgown. I lifted the blanket and stood up, looking for something to cover me when the door opened. I turned around and found Garrison walking in, wearing a pair of blue sweats and nothing else. His body was dripping with sweat from exercise, and his dark eyes were directed at me. I covered myself with my arms, and he smiled as he ran his hand through his long hair. "Good morning, wife. You look a fine sight," Garrison said. I cleared my throat. You slept with me, didn't you?" He planted his hands on his hips. "Of course I did. I undressed you too. I had to take 3 cold showers just because of that. You were all cold. Are you feeling better?" I nodded. "Yes, I am. Thank you." He walked toward me and took my hand, bringing it to his lips. It was one of the most exceptional nights of my life, sleeping next to my bride. Although I didn't really expect my wife to sleep a wink on her wedding night. I blushed as he continued smiling. I decided a change of subject was indeed needed. "Where's my clothes?" Apparently it didn't work. "Why? I like the way how you look right now." I walked past him, only to be dragged back into his arms. He turned me around and captured my lips. The kiss surprised me, and he took it as an invitation. I brought up my hands to stop him. He took them by the wrists and held me tighter. "Don't fight, Peyton. You're my wife." I softened against him. "I'm not trying to fight you. I know it won't work, but I'm still trying to get used to the idea of being married again. The first time didn't work out. I'm scared of the results of this." He ran his thumb over my bottom lip. "I promise you that you don't need to worry about that. Unlike Jake, I'm a man of my word. I keep my wife happy and safe. You can count on that to begin with." We're not strangers, Peyton, darling. What we've already shared is deemed husband and wife in anyone's eyes. I don't want you to be scared about anything. I suddenly felt sad, and tears entered my eyes. When I looked away, he tilted my chin to look up at him. I don't want to get hurt. Garrison pulled me close and kissed me tenderly. I'll save you from it. I'll show you what happiness is like. Just don't fight me. I let out a soft breath as his fingers reached for the straps on the nightgown. I shuddered as he pulled it down and pulled me closer to him. His eyes told me the truth of what he wanted and how he felt. I knew that although love didn't exist in him, something else did, and it burned passionately for me. I would take it because I needed him more than I ever needed anyone. 4 hours later, we finally emerged from the bedroom. I dressed in a soft purple maxi gown, and Garrison had on a pair of black slacks and a sweater. Taking my hand, we went down the stairs that led to a large opening of the living room. The house was big and beautiful, with top-notch art designs and decorated with a chic look. There were large 10-foot windows that let the natural light in. I needed a map just to find my way around. When we rounded the corner, an older plump woman with salt and pepper hair smiled at us. She was wearing a gray dress with a white apron. Mrs. Potter, this is my wife, Peyton, Garrison said. She smiled and took my hand. I'm so pleased to meet you. If you need anything, let me know. Whatever food you desire, please inform me, and I'll have it for you. She also spoke with an accent. I smiled. Thank you. She looked at Garrison. Lunch is ready for you two out on the terrace. Thank you. She smiled at me, and Garrison led me out to the terrace where it was warm. I noticed he had a large amount of land where a few people were working the ground. He helped me sit down and took a seat across from me. The lunch Mrs. Potter prepared was steamed chicken breast with a variety of vegetables. This looks great, I said. You must be famished. I nodded and began eating. Where are we? Garrison took a sip of his wine. We're in England. I almost dropped my fork. What? Shriveville, to be exact. I didn't think you'd take me straight to England. I thought you said you had estates in the U.S. as well. I do, but this is my real home, and I wanted you to see it. Besides, my father has requested that we do an actual wedding ceremony here. He wants society to know his son is now married to a beautiful woman. You don't speak of your mother. Where is she? Garrison shrugged. I don't know. She left my father when I was born. I haven't seen her since. I'm sorry. It seems we have something in common. Smiling, he replied, Yes, we came from broken homes to piece together a full life. I chewed my food before swallowing and then speaking. And the wedding, will it take place here? It can. It's up to you. I laughed. Garrison, to be honest, I don't know the first thing about planning a wedding. My first one with Jake was a spur of the moment, and his mom planned everything. I didn't have any part in it. He reached over and took my hand. Then this will be yours and yours alone. Whatever you want, it's yours. Name it and I'll make it happen. I stared at him and the fluttering appeared. I looked away and he caught my flushed cheeks. He chuckled, and when I finally dared to look up at him, he was staring at me with those passionate eyes that seemed to stare right into my soul. He was watching me and I began to scorn. He leaned forward and took my hand. Why are you resisting this feeling? Just say it out loud. I'm not afraid to say it, Garrison. Then say it. I swallowed. I want you. When I was married to Jake, I never knew that lovemaking could be so magical. It wasn't that he was not gentle. He was. But he made it seem like it was a routine. A deed he needed to do just because he was my husband. He made it seem like I was a duty, an object he needed to take care of because he had a title as my husband. With Garrison, it was beyond anything I'd ever experienced. He always made sure I was with him in emotion and physical being. He never left me alone, and the more passion I felt, the more I wanted it. It was like I was an animal, not getting enough and being physically exhausted at the same time. but the honeymoon was just about to end. I woke up alone. I hated waking up alone. I always slept in, and Garrison was never there. He was an early riser, and he would have put in 5 miles of running before I even stirred. Today was no different. I showered, dressed in a dark blue jumpsuit, and came down the stairs. I had put my hair in a low bun and applied some light makeup. I heard voices talking in the kitchen, and I wandered over. The shape of a very exotic woman stood before me with the face of an angel. She had very long blonde hair and the greenest eyes I'd ever seen. Her cheekbones were high and her lips were painted a dark ruby red. On her slender wrists were gold bangles, and a silver belt decorated the black long maxi dress she wore. She stared at me head to toe, and then her gaze shifted to Mrs. Potter, who had stopped scraping the potatoes. "Who is she?" the woman asked. "Why don't you ask me? I'm standing right here," I replied. Ignoring me, she asked Mrs. Potter again. "Hey, I asked you a question." I turned to Mrs. Potter, whose cheeks were red. "Leave us." "Yes, my lady." The blonde's jaw hit the floor. She turned and glanced at me, and then she crossed her arms and shook her head. "My lady? Since when does the help call a woman like you my lady?" I smiled. "Since I married Garrison." "You're kidding me, right?" "I'm afraid I'm not." She let her arms fall down. "I don't believe you." "Look, you can believe whatever it is you want to. I'm his wife, and right now you're bothering my staff, and that's very rude. If you can't be polite, I'm afraid I'll have to ask you to leave." She laughed. "You think I'm scared of you? I have been in this house 1,000 times, and I have stayed overnight here more times than I can count. Garrison will never believe you over me." "Try me," Garrison said from the doorway. We both turned to find Garrison walking in from a run in his sweats. The man looked good enough to eat with his wet hair. His eyes caught mine, and the passion from last night struck a memory. I felt the flutter. He reached me and reached out to put his hand around my waist. I could smell his spicy masculine scent, and it tickled me in forbidden places. "What are you doing here, Tasha?" Garrison asked. Tasha, as Garrison called her, perked up and smiled sweetly. "Oh boy, what an actress. I missed you. I've only been gone a few weeks." "Weeks? I broke it off with you 6 months ago." I cringed and watched as redness crept across her face. I couldn't stand to watch this. "I'll be upstairs." He turned to face me. "You're not going anywhere, sweetheart. The one doing the leaving is Tasha. You are the queen of this home." I ignored him and turned on my heels. I heard her chuckle after me. I didn't want to be the witness to this sorry excuse of a relationship. Everyone had a past. Everyone had a history. Some histories were better left unopened. But sometimes damaged people haunted you because you were once tied together. I knew that my story itself wasn't pretty. I didn't want Garrison to witness any of it. Really, I was doing him a favor. When I got up to the room, I pulled on a sweater and walked out to the terrace that was connected to the master bedroom. The view was breathtaking. It was a painter's envy. It would be the perfect place to create a masterpiece. My heart felt heavy, and I wondered if I had done the right thing. Did I make the right decision to marry a man I hardly knew? I was now living in a foreign country where I had nowhere to go and no one I knew. My mother was thousands of miles away, and although I yearned for her comfort, I knew I had to fight this battle on my own. I heard footsteps running up the stairs, and then Garrison came charging through to the terrace. I looked up at him and saw the darkness in his eyes. His teeth were clenched, and anger was spitting apparently on his face. "Why didn't you listen to me?" he growled. I looked away from him. "Why should I stay and watch you and your lover brew over a broken heart? It's more peaceful up here." He grabbed my arm and turned me around. She's not my lover. She never was. I laughed. So you mean to tell me that you have never slept with her? I mean, look at her. I have looked, and that's all I've done. Looked. I'm tired of women like her. That's why I found you. Have you forgotten? You're the only woman I have ever chased. I freed myself from him and turned away until he wrapped his arms around me and held me. The comfort of his arms made me close my eyes, his touch warming my skin, making the dark thoughts disappear. How did he do that? How was he able to make everything disappear just by touching me? He turned me around slowly and captured my chin with his fingers. Peyton, I know that you and I are strangers in this thing called marriage, but I repeated those sacred vows, and they mean everything to me. We may not have started out the way others did, but it doesn't mean I haven't taken this seriously. Inside of me, it burns for you when you're not here with me. I nearly killed all those hotel attendants when I found that you were gone in Jamaica. Did you honestly think I had those thoughts because you were just a fling? I shuddered and closed my eyes. It was an invitation to kiss me. He knew it, and he did it. And when he pulled away, I looked up to find myself in his eyes, as beautiful as the first time. People who have been scarred like me, it's harder to break through. I'm just afraid it's all going to turn out the same way. Don't ever think that. For once, I'm not him. Trust me enough that I can make this work. I ran my hands up his arms and curled them around his neck. I will trust you. Planning a wedding was harder than I thought. No, wait, let me rephrase that. Planning a royal wedding was harder than I thought. First, who the hell knew I was going to be wearing a $1 million dress designed by the greatest fashion designer in the world ever? When I saw the dress layout, I nearly died. It was going to be the most incredible dress ever to touch this body of mine. My mother would faint of envy. Second, did the wedding really require 600 roses? Those poor flowers were going to be thrown away at the end of the wedding anyways. I felt bad. I kept reminding Garrison every moment I could about how this was too much. He replied back with, "You're married to me now. This is how things are done." Third, the guest list. Oh my God, I have never seen so many sirs and lords. Some of the names I couldn't even pronounce. The list itself was 10 pages long. My first thought was, will this fit the mansion? And would I need to know everyone by name? I was petrified of my own wedding due to the fact that it was going to be the most talked about event of the year. In the days that followed Garrison's promise to me, he assigned me 2 personal guards. At first, I thought, I don't need them. And then on my way home from the market, I was attacked by 2 crazed photographers trying to get a photo of me. Luckily, the 2 guards got to me before they were able to. I came home and cried to Garrison, who held me and promised to make sure it never happened again. "Did you have the security with you?" he asked as he rubbed circles on my back. We were laying together in bed with the windows opened. The soft breeze came in and offered me peace while his fingers offered me safety. They were. Were you hurt? No. Why haven't you released in the press yet who you're going to marry? Garrison kissed my head. They'll know when they attend the wedding. I've given 2 of the top reporters front seats to cover the wedding if they stop following you around. I don't want your face plastered all over the news. I vow to protect you, and I aim to please. I lifted my head up to look at him. I see them camped out in front of the house all the time. They think I'm a house servant. He looked at me up and down. Because you keep wearing your own clothes. I've asked you to wear the ones I bought you. They're too neat. I'm afraid I might wrinkle them. A smile spread across his face. Well, if you're afraid they might wrinkle, why don't you just take them off? I looked up at him and saw the glimmer of an aroused man. Oh, you want me to, don't you? A wicked grin appeared. Honey, around me, you don't need any attire. They end up on the floor anyways. Well, how about lingerie? He cocked his head. Those might just be handy. His hand reached inside my blouse just as a knock came on the door. I laughed as his face broke into anger. I pulled away and walked to open the door to find a horrified Mrs. Potter. She was twisting a rag between her fingers, and her eyes were bright with tears. What's wrong? I asked as I pulled her in. Garrison got off the bed and walked toward us as she closed the door. He came to stand beside me, and his face darkened by the appearance of Mrs. Potter. Tasha is downstairs, my lord. She won't leave. I'm so sorry to bother you, but I had no choice. Garrison growled and moved past us toward the door, but then he turned back around and grabbed my arm. Before I could utter a word, we were both running down the stairs together. We found her sitting in the couch as if she belonged, with her perfectly tamed hair in a bun. She was wearing a very short dress with heels that made her legs long for days. When she saw us, she stood, but her smile wasn't present. I asked to see you, Garrison, not her, Tasha said. She's my wife. Where I go, she goes. I thought I told you to never come back here. She crossed her arms. Today is my best friend's engagement party. You promised to go with me. If you don't, I'll be attending alone, and you know how I hate that. Garrison laughed. I'm not going with you. Leave. She stomped her foot. I'm serious, Garrison. I raised my eyebrows and tried as I might. The laughter bubbled out of me. She turned to face me, and her hands fell to her sides in fists. Garrison placed his arm around my waist. What's so funny? She asked. I cleared my throat. Forgive me. But when I see a grown woman dressed like you stomping her foot, it draws up an image of a very immature child throwing a temper because mommy didn't buy her a damn lollipop. Garrison chuckled beside me. She turned her eyes to him and walked toward me. Before I could predict it, her hand flew across my cheek. My head snapped back and tears burned my eyes. The blurred image of Garrison carrying her out was all I saw before my legs gave out and I fell to the ground. Mrs. Potter came to my side immediately. "Ah, dear Lord, my lady, let me see." I removed my hand and she examined my cheek as Garrison came back. He almost shoved Mrs. Potter away as he got down on his knees. Concern burrowed on his face as he checked me thoroughly. I put my hands up to push him away and he stood up. "I'm fine," I said. Standing, he grabbed my arm. "Kiss me." Mrs. Potter's face reddened as she walked away. I frowned as I turned to him. "Why?" "Because I need you to calm me down before I go after her and murder her." I walked to him and placed my hands on his chest. The rapid heart beating began to slow, and I saw his eyes return to its normal color. "I'm okay. I want to kill her for doing that. You got rid of her. That's all I need. Now, how about you and I finish our conversation upstairs, where we were rudely interrupted?" Thank you for tuning in to part 4. Catch part 5 in the next episode. Thank you.